Hey Guildies, Procrastio, Pete. Going to give you a bit of a heads up on the TSO Swift Simulator. I'm running the latest version 2.08 beta, and if I break into different sorts of voices, I apologise. What I want to show you is a couple of things. First of all, setting up a basic map. Now, this is VLT, we all know and love VLT. You'll see down here I have set up all my camps to ignore the ones I don't have to attack. This saves a lot of time when we do the map simulator. And what I'm going to develop for you is one of my waves guides. That is, I'm going to send 6 generals to Sector 1, move on, change all the army, send however many generals I need to do Sector 2, and just do it wave after wave after wave. I'll show you how to do that with this, and it steps you through the processes of using the Swift Simulator. You'll notice I've put all my generals in. That can be a bit of a tedious process, but nonetheless relatively simple. Now I've got 2 cloak generals, but I don't need to put 2 cloak generals into my system there. The reason I've got 2 YGGs is because I've got one of them a 15-minute general and one of them an 8-minute general. I've got a couple of different major generals there that I run, but I don't include them in my normal simulations. So what am I going to do? I am going to go to my map simulator, and I've set this up before. If you haven't set it up, it's easy to do. If you want to ignore a camp, left finger, control button, click, and it now doesn't ignore it. Control, click, and it will ignore that one. I like to name mine in sequence so I know where I'm working. And I've already... No, I haven't created that yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new one. You can put on the weather, but I never remember to. That's up to you. Yet another wave guide, and when we do setup here, I'm going to copy my camp names, copy my camp types, copy my sectors, but I'm going to clear all my automatically best saved. These are really dangerous things to play with, but I'll show you how we do it later. Annoying alert. There we go. Next thing I do is I go to the map simulator, and one thing you should do, trust me, is to make sure that you are simulating at 205 with steps 5. If you accidentally do the map simulator with 10,000 simulations, you come back half an hour later and go, wasn't I doing something with that? Oh yeah. So we just hit simulate, and this wears off and does its own thing. Now my computer's 6-core full-on number crunching machine, and it can take a little while to do a whole map. So this is I'm going to go and make a coffee sort of process. This runs all your generals that are in your list and creates the best attack for them based on the algorithms that it uses. And me being the number nerd that I am, I want to write to them and say, you know, you could improve how this works. But can't be bothered. So I promise we'll come back in a minute. We're at about just gone a minute on my simulation. So we're just simulating camp 37 of 40 that we will attack in VLT. And again, you can create your guides the way you want to. So once it's finished, what I'm going to now do is go back to my camp simulator. And what I notice is that a couple of these camps don't have anything attached to them. Other ones have a list of possible attacks that will take out the camp, but these don't. That's because on the map simulator we don't do automatic attack waves. So you'll notice in my attack waves I've got quite a number of mine that my generals that I'm happy to run as attack waves. Most of these have got one up. That way I can use them a couple of times. And Cloak General I've got 2. Shifu and Master Shifu and Master Splinter, they one-upped. But and so is Mr. Miyagi, but they are slightly different, each of them. They've got a slight different books in different places. So what we're going to do here is we're going to simulate this camp. So because we've got no real attack, what we need to do is make sure we've got simulate main attacks with automatic attack waves in there, and hit simulate for each individual camp. Now again, this can take a little bit of time. And this is where the number cruncher in me says, seriously, you're going to do that? I would be doing a bit of a binary search rather than just random numbers down. I look at that and it says we're using George slow with recruits, and it drops down 10 every time just to see if it can run an attack with a fewer number of recruits. If it was me, I'd start at the top, go to half. If that works, halve that. If it doesn't, go up. Those of you who are good at binary search will know what I'm talking about. Those of you who aren't nerdily minded like me, just ignore what I said. So we're going to take a quick look at the time. It says 11:12 PM. I'm going to pause my video and I'm going to see how long it takes to come back. Okay, this is officially ridiculous. Look here. Look at the time. 11:52. I think it's been 40 minutes. I'll check that and I'll put my answer here if it's been 40 minutes. And so far we have done my first 4 generals with this, and there's a good reason why. Now I can see that my Cloak General is going to do pretty well here, so I'm actually going to stop it just by setting that as the main attack. And you'll see it automatically stops, and when it catches up it sets that as my main attack. Why is that? Well, I don't know why, but I've got Bowman on here. Look, that's not my preference. These would be my preferences, just to run recruits. And let's be honest, I don't need those guys there. I didn't even have Gerald on, and I'm not going to run my what do you call him? I can't remember what they're called. I was just thinking it was Dracula. He's my Lord Dracul. No, Lord Dracul. Of course, I have got the Malu card, which for those of you who can't realize that is Dracula backwards. Okay, I had too many generals on and I had too many options for them. So if I look at this one, oh now, you can see now if I hit simulate here, it should go a lot faster. What are we now? 11:53. And we've already done Anselm, we're doing Nusala. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but I always like to think of it as Nusala. You can see this is going much more quickly because I've reduced the number of options, both in the number of generals I'm running with my automatic attack waves, and also the troops that it's taking into the battle. Even as such, I want to scream at the person who programmed this. It's not the most efficient way of doing it. Made a bit of progress here. I spent a lot of time with Jeffrey and Gerald there, my Geminis. The older Gemini takes longer to simulate, clearly because it's got 295 troops. Stacy, my steadfast, is nearly done. The next one after that will be Stacy's mum, or of course if you're American, Stacy's mom. She's got it going on. And then I think we've got Mr. Yeltsin is last, aka Boris. There we are. There's Boris. He's last on my list. So what am I going to choose here? It doesn't give me a recommendation. Clearly my Cloak General is the fastest, but I don't want to use George again because I've already used him once here. I don't want to use up his 1-up. I'm not going to kill him off again, so I am going to remove George from my list, which I should have done before, and just sim with my Cloak General. And that shouldn't take too long, he says knowingly. Here we go. Getting down in recruits for our fast general. I really didn't think that was going to take us long, but we're going to set that as the main attack. Now, there I've used Gerald. I don't want to use him again, because what I want to do is only send one lot of troops, not have to wait around. So I've got this one here, which I've got to do. Okay, well let's look at what we've got. I'll finish that later. But the idea of my waves guides is that for these 6 attacks are 6 individual generals. Now you notice that I've got Anselm here for 4 of them. What I usually do is keep the one where we have the most troop losses, because that's what we're trying to minimize. I'll go to the next highest troop loss for that general. And there's no, you see, unfortunately there's no other general that can win there in one go. So I'm going to keep Anselm there, and then I'm going to use some of these other ones to, I'm going to set that as my main attack. So now, and I'm going to go here, and I haven't got a Vargas. Let's go with Vargas. I'm going to go with the first one. Oh, we can cloak it up. So you'll notice here I've got Cloak General, Boris, Jeffrey, my older Gemini, a Vargas, one of my younger Geminis, my slower one, and an Anselm. So what that means is I can line them all up here, put all their troops in, send them off, and do all of Sector 1 in one go. Now I can't get past the leader camp there, so I need to stop and work on the next sector. Now you see the next sector, I picked the Cloak General for a good reason, because I hadn't used him elsewhere in here. So now what I've got to do is try and find alternatives for these guys. So that one was easy. And that wasn't. Now, one of the things I can do with my older Gemini is run a quick sim with one of my major generals, my 250 come 285 generals. My 270, sorry, not my 250, my 270 general. So if I sim there, that's a good sign, he will get a win, and I can just set that as my main attack. Now you'll see in Sector 2 I've got a Major General, Nusala, Jeffrey, Anselm, George, and a Cloaked. So that sees Sector 2 off. Sector 3, again, it's just a matter of juggling these things around. Do I have any other options here? Yes, I've got a Nusala there. I've got a Boris here. Now, am I going to do it perfect every time? No. But after a while you get good at picking the things you want to use. Let's see if that's got alternatives. Oh, it does. It's got a Vargas alternative, which is pretty similar. So we're going to use that one. Vargas, Anselm, Jeffrey, Boris, Musala, Gerald, and a Cloak General. So then what I usually do here at the end, and I know I can block it, I know I can do all those things, but I'm lazy. So this one's got quite a few options, so that's very close. So we're going to change that to a Nusala. That's good. 4.5. Now we can see if we can change one of these up. Now in the final sector I've found with my guides, you know, sometimes you're just not going to get an option, and in fact, because I've got to send a couple of so here I am just trying my Cloak General there. Oh, Cloak General followed by a Cloak General. You know, I can do that because I've got two. So we can set that like that. If you run a sim with, if I run a sim with that, okay. So there we go. That's how I set up my waves attacks. It doesn't necessarily work nicely, or you don't get it right first time, but you can play with it. Now, I've got to finish off 4-7, which is going to take some time. So I'll do that later. What would I do now? Well, first thing I would do is I would do the 10,000 resims and look at any that say unable to win. How does that work, you ask? Well, sometimes I find if I run that in the custom simulation tab and chuck it up to 10,000 point, there is the odd chance every now and again that I'm not going to win with that, which is really strange. So if you make sure to put your simulation back, if I change that one over there and run that again, now it works. So you can check these things here, you can fiddle with these to your heart's content, but losing 3 cannoneers at this stage is not a big issue for me. Those losses are acceptable. If they're not for you, they're not for you, but I can see them as being acceptable. This one says unable to win 2.7% of the time. That is that camp. So my question is, why not just do that? And let's and let's re-simulate that with 10,000 attacks. So there you go. If I put up the ante on the attack wave, it works fine. These are acceptable losses, these are acceptable losses. And so now you can see that I can do each sector with one wave of attacks. And it's just a matter of spacing them out nicely for it. Spacing them out appropriately. The last thing I always then make sure I've got my suggested minimum troops, and you may think that's a lot of recruits. Yeah, it is, but who cares? They're only recruits. I'll get them back. And another thing you can do is the chain simulator. So say I want to attack these two camps in tandem. This will actually work out for me if I can go from the first one to the second one and still survive. However, the caveat on this is that sometimes I find this is the place where this simulator freezes more often than not. Now theoretically here it says I've got 2 options. For that I can send 155 troops with my slow YGG, or I can send 210 with Jeffrey, and why I wouldn't send 295 in that case I've got no idea. But I don't want to do chains in this case, so I'm going to do this. Now I know it looks messy with all these things over here, but most of them are 99.9% zeros. The last thing I then do is I'm going to duplicate it. So this is my edited guide. Make sure I've got that. And the last thing I do is I'm going to this last checkbox, clear all automatically saved best attacks from this glide, because what that does, it just makes it easier to read, because it's got rid of all the other options. Now those options are still there because I made a copy. Those options are still there, as you can see there, because I made a copy of the guide. So when I finish this, I can use this yet another wave guide for for VLT, Valiant Little Tailor. Hope that helped.